Welcome to Riding Shotgun, Thanksgiving week edition. I'm out solo today. It was a little muddy. I didn't really want the dog to get as muddied up as I know she was going to get, because I didn't want to deal with cleaning her paws off. So, so it's Tuesday, and you know, yesterday we had this press conference with Josh Whitman about the two pieces of news: the creation of the Dick Butkus statue, which I was delighted to hear about that. It's kind of been a pet project of mine in my head that I wanted them to get done while he's still living. You know, usually you do a statue with somebody, and by the time you get around to it, they're long gone. And in the case of Dick, he's 74, and you know, I've talked to him a couple times recently when he was around for the Hall of Fame stuff, and oh my gosh, it's just so much fun to talk to him, and I'll get to that in a second. And then the news that Illinois and Missouri will be renewing their football rivalry. That doesn't start until 2026. Good gracious, who knows who all will be around by then? You know, but that's, and you know, initially they're talking about those games would be on campus. They'd be in Champaign in 2026 and 2028, September, and then September of 2027 and 29 in Columbia, Missouri. There's the athletic directors have said they're going to be open-minded to a possible St. Louis game, maybe play two of those in St. Louis, but they don't have any idea where they would play. They don't know what the future of that dome is. There's not a primary tenant there right now. That could close. It could be demolished. Who knows? Or it could be there. Busch Stadium's been brought up. Busch Stadium is really hard in September. You know, the Cardinals are playing. You know, they don't want to tear up their field then. It's just that's a hard one. It'd be cool. It'd be really cool if it was November, but it's a non-conference game, so it's going to be in September. So anyhow, but let me go back to Butkus for just a minute, because I've watched people on a number of occasions come up to Dick Butkus, and Dick Butkus to me is football royalty. I mean, this dude will always be the king in my book. I grew up watching him. I grew up in the Chicago area in Evanston, and a Bears fan, and my dad and I would watch the Bears. And my dad, there was two guys my dad loved, and he loved these really kind of tough guys. One was Dick Butkus, and one, for people who are a little older might remember, was a guy named Ed Sprinkle. And Ed Sprinkle was a bad mamma jamma too, but Butkus was just unbelievable. And if you watch highlight tapes of Butkus, and if you haven't done that, if you're a younger person and didn't happen to be watching when he was doing it, man, go back and look. I mean, first of all, the rules were different. You couldn't do what he did now, because you were allowed to break quarterbacks in half. You were allowed to pick up running backs and march them backwards and slam them into the turf. Then you were allowed to just get that extra little, you know, Butkus to get on top of a guy and just kind of grind him into the ground a little bit before he got up. And when people come up to compliment Dick, I've noticed, and they're not wrong about this. I mean, this is what my recollection of him is too. And they were like, people are like, oh man, I loved watching you play. I just loved the way you were so mean and nasty, and how you just smashed guys into pieces, and how you threw them on the ground. And I loved how you had snot and slobber coming off your face mask. And Dick listens to these things. This has been my observation. And he's like, oh God, they're describing an animal, you know? And they're trying their best to compliment him. And Dick understands. He knows how he played. And he knows what made him, as it says on the cover of the 1970 Sports Illustrated issue, the most feared man in the game. But it kind of makes him squirm a little bit, you know. So the last time he was here, which was 2 months ago, we were over at the I Hotel, and I had an opportunity to talk to him, and just one-on-one for a little while. And I have never expressed those things to him, sort of a fanboy kind of thing about, you know, how awesome he was and how awesome he is, and so forth and so on. So, but what I ended up choosing to say to him was, I just said, listen, as a kid who grew up in the Chicago area, I just want you to know that so many of my best football memories have you in them. And I just, what I've come to learn is that everybody who plays the game, if they just played with your passion, how you played, like every game was your last game, every play was your last play. I mean, you never gave less than 100%, and it was with such passion. And that's what I'll always remember about you. That's what I said to him. And he looked up at me, he looked me in the eye, and he said, thanks, man, I really appreciate that. And I don't know if he appreciated that I said that, but I think he kind of appreciated that I didn't say the other, you know, that I didn't describe him as this savage, which isn't inaccurate. I mean, he was a savage. And so grateful that they're going to put a statue similar to the Grain statue created by the same UI alum sculptor George Lundeen. But this will be on the other side of the stadium, over there by the new Performance Center, overlooking the practice fields. And Lovey was excited about it. Hardy Nickerson was really excited about it. Hardy Nickerson, an NFL linebacker for so many years, you know, realizes that Dick is the gold standard, not only for linebackers, but for defensive guys. And you know, we were talking to him, you know, Dick would have been flagged a million times nowadays for targeting, for being too rough on quarterbacks, being too rough on anybody. And Hardy was like, oh yeah. And he said, you know, and I said, you would have too, Hardy, because I've seen tapes of Hardy. And Hardy was like, no question, you know, the rules have changed. They really reeled it in. You can't do these things. And the other thing you notice, if you watch tapes, just look at the size of Butkus' shoulders. And what it is shoulder pads were enormous then. In the 60s, shoulder pads were enormous. And now they've really reduced in size. It's not these hulking gladiators that you used to see. It just looks different now. But gosh, he's just something. And to be able to honor him that way while he's alive, and while he and his family will have input into the design of this. You know, sometimes there's an iconic photo. You know, if you were going to do a sculpture, obviously they've already done it, of the Heisman Trophy. There's a pose there that, you know, that has to be it. Well, with Butkus, I don't think there's one iconic thing. So they will look at every kind of photo available and try to come up with a composite. I remember when George Lundeen was here for the Grange photo, of trying to bring movement and life to something that's going to be stationary. And that's what he's going to try to do with the Butkus statue, is pick a pose that shows him, really captures him. And then the unveiling will be the new building, the new Performance Center will be ready before the 19 season, and the statue will be ready, and hopefully Dick will be great and in great health and be able to be there. He's an emotional guy, and he was emotional when Josh Whitman and others sat down with him and explained to him that, look, we want to do this, and this is a tribute you've earned, and this is, you know, you're important to what we want people to think of Illinois athletics as, with a certain toughness and passion and all that stuff. And, you know, hey, it invites a million jokes right now because football is bad right now. We get that, but resist that. This is a tribute to a guy who's unbelievable, who went to a Rose Bowl with the Illini, who's an NFL Hall of Famer, who's, if you're going to make a Mount Rushmore of the great players in the game, in my opinion, he's on it. It's exciting. That was just such exciting news. The Illinois-Missouri thing, I mean, that's good news. I like the idea of playing those games on campus. I think Missouri-Illinois in Champaign would generate better than average excitement for a non-conference game. No question about it. And it's just so far off. It's 9 years off. I mean, who knows what anything will look like then. You know, in a perfect world, both teams would be nationally ranked, and SEC versus Big Ten, that would be absolutely awesome. And you know, who knows who the coaches will be? Maybe they'll be the same people. Maybe they won't. You know, we just don't know. That's so far off. So much happens in 9 years, but you know, it's a good non-conference game. I think what Josh said that was interesting is, you know, their intention in scheduling now is to have one Power 5 game against a Power 5 opponent, one Group of 5 opponent, and one of the old Division I AA opponents. And that's what the Big Ten is allowing teams to do now as they sort of revise their stance on scheduling, because you're going to play 9 Big Ten games. I mean, you want, you know, you can't make it too crazy. So that was good. And then, you know, in basketball, when DePaul was here on Friday night, I think we all saw the extra buzz that is associated with an in-state game. Now, Illinois will play an in-state team in Augustana on Wednesday. That's a different deal. That's a D3 team. Their coach, there's ties to the coaching staffs anyhow. But I'm talking about DePaul, you know, an Illinois State game, an SIU game, a Northern Illinois game, a Bradley game. There's a little different feeling there, and it would be fun. And I think Brad is open to that. I just also think right now college basketball scheduling so hard with the number of neutral site games that Obligated to, or event games that you're obligated to, like the Gavitt games or the Big Ten, ACC Big Ten Challenge. Illinois has the Bragging Rights game in St. Louis. They've got the United Center game. Next year they play in Maui. They usually have some kind of a tournament situation. If you play somebody at the United Center, often you're paying it back. So there's a payback game there. It doesn't leave that many games, and you're trying to win enough games too. I mean, you know, look at, you know, yeah, there are some cool games going on right now between a Michigan State Duke, but look at the rest of the Michigan State schedule. They've got some easier games built in, and you're going to do that. So I like the idea in theory of even like what we used to call the Illini Classic, that event that the Rebounders Club and Lou Henson put together. I don't know that there was anything classic about it, but if you had a rotating group of 4 in-state schools, if you had Illinois and DePaul and Illinois State and Northern, that would generate some interest. And then the next year you have it, make it be Northwestern and SIU and you know, whoever. There's enough teams in the state to allow participation and move it around a little bit, and that would be fun. I don't know if they'll ever get to that, but I just think that would be a pretty cool one. So basketball, I'm going over today. Underwood's having a little press conference in advance of their 2 games this week. Augustana on Wednesday, North Carolina Central on Friday, and then next week early they go to Wake Forest for the ACC Big Ten Challenge game. And Wake Forest has been struggling. I think they're 1-4 as we speak right now, and so, you know, we'll see where all this goes. But I expect Illinois to be 6-0 when they make that trip out to Wake Forest, and I think that, you know, I've enjoyed what I've seen. I think they're certainly not a perfect team, and you know, are they going to lose some games? Of course, but I see progress, and that's what we thought we would see: incremental, gradual progress. Better in December than November, better in January than December. I think people have no idea how good Kipper Nichols can be. I think Kipper Nichols has no idea how good Kipper Nichols can be. I think Brad Underwood knows how good Kipper Nichols can be. He's different. He's physically strong. There's a kind of a rage that he can play with because he's high energy. He can do a lot of things. He can get a rebound. He can go. He can handle the ball on the break. He can shoot threes. He can dunk. He can defend. He can pass. With him playing at a high level, and with Aaron Jordan playing at a level that we didn't expect him to play at, they have more experience depth than I thought that they might be able to call on. And the freshmen are just kind of finding it and moving along. And so I like what we've seen. and am excited to see more of it. And let's face it, after a difficult football season, we're all ready for basketball, ready for something that that gets us excited. And you know, I'm fully understand that as soon as they lose a game, there'll be people out there squealing and, you know, they don't do this right. Well, okay. But it's fun to watch so far. So that's all for today. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we head into the holidays. I gotta get gas for the truck here, because Friday I gotta take the truck and go out to the tree farm and get our Christmas tree and get that baby up. My wife already got a jump on Christmas decorations. God bless her. She did a heck of a job Sunday getting things going a little bit. And I'll get our dog out here with us next time, and oh, you have to see her new collar. She got a new collar my wife bought her. It's kind of an Illini collar. That decision was made by my wife, that's what she needs. So we'll show you that next time too, and have a great holiday weekend, and hope you get to see some games. These the next couple games are streamed, and then we're back to TV, and then there's one more streamed game on December 30th. The rest of them on some conventional TV station that you should be able to find with your cable or satellite provider. So I know that's a pain for some people, and not a pain for some. Some people have no problem with that, but some of our older fans are just mystified by the whole streaming concept, and sure appreciate it when the games are back on ESPN or whatever. Saturday's football game, by the way, with Northwestern is on Fox Sports 1, and it looks like Cam Thomas is going to be able to play quarterback. That was a kind of a mess over the weekend with the situation with Chase Crouch having to quarterback, and then at the end with Cam Miller having to jump in there. What a great moment, though, for Cam Miller when he scored that touchdown. That was awesome. To see a walk-on kid who gets no attention or acclaim, run the scout team, just practice and work and practice and work. That's a kid that came to Illinois. It was his dream school, wants to study business, which he will, wants to start a construction company, which I'm sure he will, but wouldn't mind having a great football memory. And oh, by the way, kids and grandkids, gather around and let me tell you about the touchdown I scored at the Horseshoe in Columbus. How cool was that? That was great stuff. Hey, have a great week, everybody. Thanks for riding along. Sure appreciate it. Bye.